Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in the Future of Work. I'm your host, Rachel Cossar, and we're really excited for this 8th season because we have a number of amazing guests, both partners and community members, clients and users of Virtual Sapiens technology. And today we have a very special guest, a new partner of ours, Monique Gibelli. So Monique, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you.
We're so glad to have you. If you wouldn't mind, just for our viewers, introducing yourself and sharing whatever's most relevant about your background.
Sure. So I'm thrilled to be here. So thank you for the invitation. I work with Daymar Group. We're a leadership consulting company. We've been around for 24 years. And I've recently joined them because I am launching the new AI practice with the leadership consulting. And so we are now bringing in AI technology like virtual sapiens and other AI technology to help leaders transform their organizations from both a leadership and development perspective, but also from a transformation of their entire organization. So that's why I'm excited to join you and talk about our partnership with Virtual Sapiens.
Awesome. Yeah. So there's so much that's changing, and there's so much in even just what you've shared of the evolution of Daymar Group over the years. So I'd love to start with some like context setting really when it comes to this leadership development space. So leadership development, as many people know, right, has been very information, content, insight, advice heavy. But you yourselves have said that that's not really cutting it anymore. So where do you think the limit is on the legacy model of leadership development?
Yeah, it's funny. I was thinking a lot about that. And so I did spend 11 years of my career with Microsoft, fantastic company. And I was very fortunate to participate in leadership development work that Daymar Group did with Microsoft when I was there. And so I started reflecting about who received access to that. And so I was fortunate to be part of the high potential leaders that were identified by the existing leaders of people that they thought were going to be the future leaders of Microsoft. And being part of that identified group enabled me to participate in leadership development in teams across the globe of other people that they thought were high potential. It enabled me to have dedicated one-on-one coaching. So I was able to focus on specific areas of improvement for me. I would do an assessment and then focus on that with the one-on-one coaching. But what's changing and why I think it's a fantastic, for me, it was a fantastic opportunity. Uh, but the scale of it is limited by the humans that are there with the coaching, the humans that are leading the sessions and the engagement. And a coach can only support X number of people. And so I really believe that the impact of a program like that can be so much deeper across the organization when we blend human coaching and AI practice. And also, with Daymar Group, you can see whenever we work with these senior executives and these high potential leaders across any organization, we can see firsthand how much untapped potential is 1 or 2 layers down, and they're not really getting that same level of support of development and learning and growth. And so that's a real opportunity, I think, to, as get deeper into these organizations, have more impact across the organization to drive further accelerated performance by the entire organization.
Right. You bring up a good point. Wouldn't it be nice if we could all have access to human coaches kind of on demand anytime we need them? Like, right, like that, of course, would be the ideal. And maybe some executives or very established leaders do get that, and that's great, right? But again, to your point, what about everyone else? And especially what about the people who are in those positions of leadership at like more mid-level positions, right, within the organization? And they're typically maybe served by a workshop here and there, maybe, right? But when we're talking about behavior change, which is the ultimate goal of any training, right? What role do you see practice actually playing when it comes to helping leaders develop new skills, whether those new skills are communication or general leadership or influence?
And practice makes perfect, right? Everybody always says practice makes perfect. Whether you're talking about sports, whether you're talking about music or public speaking, the more you practice, the more comfortable you get, and the more you can, stretch yourself and learn and grow. And so I think that, everybody can study technique. You can go to a session, you can get insights, but your skills really only going to get any kind of improvement by practicing, listening to the feedback and incorporating the feedback and practicing it again and measuring that you're truly making that change. And how are you truly measuring that? Having an impartial solution, um, like Virtual Sapiens to measure the quality of that communication that you're having, the the verbal cues, the nonverbal cues, the tones that you're using, all
Hmm.
of that is is done by Virtual Sapiens. So it's giving you feedback and telling you each time you practice, how are you improving? How are
Mhm.
you developing that skill for communicating more effectively with others? Maybe you have an area of development in a specific communication style. Maybe you have people on your team that communicate differently from you, and so you want to learn a new ability to communicate more effectively with those team members. Maybe you have a difficult conversation that is going to be coming up, and you're a little bit nervous about having that difficult conversation. And so how do you practice this so you feel more comfortable with the message, and also that that message is landing empathetically, right? Where you're having it with empathy, and it's measuring that, hey, the tone is right. The tone is right for that message, for that communication. And so
Right.
practice is is critical. And having a leader go to a session and just say, okay, I've learned this, is not enough. You cannot just go to a session. You have to commit to practice between sessions and not just say, okay, let me reflect on those learnings. No, no, no. Show that you've actually incorporated the learnings and shown improvement in the feedback that you were given.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, what is it that they say? You can't manage what you don't measure.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I think the other thing, you have to measure it. And this is the thing where it's consistent, right? Because coaches are can be different on different days, where if you use this tool, it's consistent every time you do it. So I think measuring that performance is really important. And I think the other part that's beautiful in terms of this marriage, between us, is that when a leader's already practiced or rehearsed a difficult conversation or board presentation or whatever it is that they're trying to deal with, the coaching session can then go deeper, because now that they've had some practice, we can actually look at the nuance of the communication, the emotional intelligence of the communication, or the strategic framing of it, rather than focusing on basic stuff, right? And so that AI assisted practice is it frees up our coaches to go and do what they do best, the higher end value, and not just the basic, you know, delivery of how to communicate.
Right. And I think that's such an important distinction because it's true that some people can still sometimes feel threatened by these technologies, right? And to your point, when used well and when used with an element of human centered training or human coaching, right, to the extent that you're able to, the AI becomes that like baseline level up um, area where you can go to for that like consequence free like very high repetition too if you want. Like it's always fascinating for us to see some of the usage metrics on the back end because some people will really go to town on the number of practice reps they do. And coaches are amazing, but coaches also kind of have a limit of how many times they're going to like sit with you and practice something. Right? I mean, maybe
Yes.
like if they're getting paid a lot of money, they're like, sure, do it 100 times. We've literally seen some people do like 140 practices of like their like 30-second opener, you know? So it just, it really fills a really interesting gap within that behavior change cycle. So it's really interesting to hear you say that. You've mentioned some specific skills that are critical to leadership, but specifically from the perspective of, AI coming on the scene and really being able to take over some tasks and functions. Which human skills do you feel are going to become the most critical for teams to succeed?
Yeah. I think this is where people are freaking out and worried, right? So, what's going to keep my job? What do I need to do? And I think the most critical skill is discernment, judgment, right? And being able to rationalize, does this make sense or not? But also, as leaders are bringing AI in different facets of their organizations, they need to develop new capabilities, knowing how to assess the organizational opportunities for AI implementation, how to measure the impact of it, and then when to leverage AI versus when to actually not leverage AI and maintain the human relationship there. And, in the past, leaders always relied on, hey, I've got these relationship or I've had this experience. This is what we've always done. They can't rely on that anymore. Things are changing too quickly. And so they need judgment about intelligent systems and their potential to transform their organization. And that's something that's new, that's really pushing the edge and the boundary for these leaders. And even though when we think about the agentic AI and we think about, the organizations are moving their workflows into something that's more automated, the ability to connect with the teams and build trust as leaders is actually becoming more important. And so those moments of genuine human leadership are much more differentiating now and critical for those leaders. And so that is what's going to make the glue and the impact of AI stick, the adoption of it successful, if the leader is connecting with the people and in it together. Everybody's got their sleeves rolled up and they're all working together, right? And so I think it's the alignment across complex organizations. The leader has to bring that together, because you're bringing lots of teams together now when they're adopting these new agentic AI solutions, and people that may not have talked before, because now they're bringing them together. And so I think this is the skills that are required here are the skills that Daymar Group helps, right? We help with creating the vision, the persuasive communication, and the ability to create that alignment across the complex organizations. And then Virtual Sapien helps the leaders practice that at scale. And so together we really help bridge, a depth of engagement and commitment of learning and adoption across the organization.
Yeah, I think the other, what you've said and highlighted about the adoption of new AI tools and how that is actually going to bring the demand for new skills to the forefront, especially when it comes to like cross department collaboration and being able to really understand impact and where it's coming from, um, is interesting in the light of how Daymark has also thought about enhancing programs with AI, right? Because we feel like the balance really has to be struck between where our AI platform integrates and then where the rest of the programming and the curriculum kind of continues to do its work, right? And it's very easy, I think, just across the AI spectrum, I think, for teams to be like, great, we're going to use this new tool, and like, hey guys, it's available to you, and like kind of like just go ahead and use it. And there's such a lack of design or really intentional integration of the AI tool and processes to support its adoption in that journey. And I think that it's so easy to have tools totally flop in that regard. And then, of course, if it's not going to be used, then it's certainly not going to be contributing to impact,
Right.
right?
Right.
And
Wasted
so,
wasted
yeah, go ahead.
investment. Yeah, no, I mean, measuring impact of any investment is critical. And so I think that right now, when people think about adopting AI, a lot of the early adopters were just measuring usage. How many licenses have been deployed? Have people done the training? Have they signed on? Have they done anything? Oh, check the box, right? But that's not really organizational change. And so the question is, what are they doing differently? Has their process changed? Has the role of the team changed, where they have been able to accelerate or amplify something and offload some of that work to excel, have greater business impact, right? Greater business performance. And so the measurement and the ROI is something that is very challenging today with AI investments. How do you link a direct investment in with a direct business outcome? And so that is something where if you're just doing training, okay, well, what's the impact of that training? Okay, and what were you expecting it to do, and did it do it? So I think that the thing that's really beautiful is the behavioral analytics that are coming out of Virtual Sapiens solution, because that enables you to track performance of communication style. And the communication and has a direct correlation of genuine communication, genuine connection, has a direct correlation of employee engagement, employee feeling of commitment, employee loyalty, right? And when their managers are in it with them, if they're communicating clearly with them, and if you're able to show that with a leader that maybe they had challenges with a team in the past, maybe they had communication challenges, and now through some behavioral analytics, you can demonstrate that ROI, and potentially you can also demonstrate that the retention now in the team is much better as well. And you can demonstrate, there are different KPIs that you could be looking at. And so I think that the ROI is something that everybody needs to connect. If you're going to invest money, what is that ROI? But having a clear framework of what you expect and how you're going to collect data to measure what you expect, and then carrying it through and validating it. Because then if it is working, where else should you be investing and doubling down and expanding? And so that just demonstrates that, hey, it is a good thing for us to do, and let's continue to move in that direction.
Right. Absolutely. So like being very clear about the ideal behaviors you're trying to change, right? The KPIs, the objectives, and then having a series of like tests, well designed tests, well measured outcomes, and then kind of doubling down from there would be a good strategy, you think, of kind of trying out some of these new systems.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Um, agree. So taking a step up, or looking ahead for maybe 5 years, although who honestly knows where we'll be then. But like let's assume this all really comes together in a wonderful way. Like where do you think, or what do you think leadership development could look like if, right, organizations are really able to partner with Daymar Group and bring these different facets of training together, right? Practice, coaching, and AI all working together.
Right. Well, I truly believe that in 5 years, leadership development is going to reach every level. And it doesn't have to be called leadership development. It can be called, you know, learning and development, right? Whatever is
Talent
required.
development.
You're right. It's any kind of development, but it's going to reach every level. And it's not just going to be the top level, the top floor. And the thing is, our organizations have changed so much in the last 10 years. They're much flatter than they used to be. Decisions are happening so much faster. It used to go up to the top to get a decision and then wait to go. Not anymore, right? It's distributed and people are making decisions really quickly. And so because of that, the need for accelerated learning is so much more critical than in the past, where they would train just a select group of senior leaders and then have it trickle down through the organization. No. We've got to move it much faster, and many more people need to be included now. And so, and what I see is, there's always going to be this need for strategic, senior-led human coaching. That's never going to go away, because the human aspect of that is absolutely critical. The judgment, the discernment, the experience of, hey, should I be doing it this way? And you always need to understand personalities and opportunities and threats. And it's not always going to be provided to you by an AI solution. And so navigating, those types of dynamics, it requires human wisdom and experience, and that is not going to go away. But I think if we can integrate and blend the human with the AI, it's just going to open up so much more for many more people in the organization, and the broader impact will be the ability to have stronger organizational performance. And I think the engagement by those employees that are participating in the learning and development, I just know that when I was going through that with my own experience, it created a sense of belonging. It created a sense of loyalty. It created, I felt that, hey, they were giving me a genuine opportunity for learning and they were investing in me with real support and real field feedback and real tools. And so those people and I at the time felt very valued. I felt seen. And so that sense of a belonging it helps to drive engagement by the employee, performance by the employee, retention, and the culture, right, of everybody working together. And so by extending it throughout that organization, AI makes that possible at scale. And it wasn't achievable before, right? We couldn't do that. That's why we just limited it to the select few. But now we don't have to. Now we can extend it and scale it out. And I think it's just the ability to prove that ROI from the leadership side. It's going to be easier by having the metrics and the KPIs that are provided by many of these tools as well. And we're going to be able to link the performance with that investment. And that's really going to be the driving impact to continue to double down and invest more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's such a great point and vision and a very exciting one. You've talked about some of the things we have to pay attention to in terms of having these new systems integrate in a way that's actually impactful. But when it comes to this vision that you just outlined, like, is there anything else that you think leaders or agents of change within organizations really need to be aware of in terms of possible impediments or barriers, things that would really stop this from happening?
I think the biggest challenge always is the internal resource constraints because companies are under-resourced in the area of leadership development, truly. So designing and implementing an AI integrated program requires expertise at many learning and development teams. They just don't have that in-house. And so that's why a partnership model or bringing in somebody that you're not building it from scratch, but you're leveraging deep expertise from your partner to help you. I think so. The internal resource constraint is one area I think hinders the implementation. Another one that I see sometimes is just there's concerns with privacy and psychological safety. So these leaders and people, anybody who's participating in this training is sharing genuine performance data. They're communicating behaviors. They're even sharing personal development struggles. And so that's very sensitive information. And people are kind of worried, like, okay, where's that going? And why am I don't know if I want to be that vulnerable or share that much, right? So we want to make sure that the tools that we use at Daymar Group are very deliberate in protecting the data. And so that's one of the reasons why we really selected Virtual Sapiens, because you guys process the video on device. You're not doing it on the servers. And your technology is SOC 2, Type 2, and GDPR compliant, which for us is fantastic. You're, top of the line. And so the answer to privacy isn't to avoid AI technology. It's just to deploy it with integrity, right? And make sure you've got your bases covered. And the other impediment, I know it's kind of difficult sometimes, but culture is often the invisible impediment. And you can deploy the best technology in the world and watch it fail because the culture of the organization doesn't support the vulnerability, doesn't support growth, doesn't support feedback. And if you don't have that in the culture enabling you to learn and to grow, it fails, right? And leadership development is ultimately always a cultural intervention. There's change, there's massive change. And that's why Daymar Group's role is never just program design. We're doing organizational change management. We're understanding the people, we're understanding the process and the culture and how it all works together and how we can uplift everything together and interlink everything together. And those leaders that are implementing AI have to treat it just like any change management initiative. They have to provide clear goals, strong sponsorship. They have to assess their organizational readiness and commit to long-term iteration.
Yeah. Very articulate, I must say. You've clearly, spent a good number of years in this space, right? Thinking through this. And honestly, what an exciting time to be in, right? Like to
Yeah.
your point, some of these things were just, you were just going to have to be like, these are just issues that are, there's no way around them, right? From like a scaling access to feedback and practice and all that. So exciting times for sure. Speaking of, as we wrap up, is there anything that you'd like to share with the audience, either in terms of how they can follow your journey, get more access to your thought leadership, or anything that you're particularly excited that's on the horizon that you just want to share with our audience?
So, as I said in the beginning, we're in the very beginning of building out our practice and incorporating AI. I've just joined the firm recently, but I've been familiar with Daymar Group for 16 years, so I'm excited to help take us to the next level. We have our website, daymargroup.com, that welcome you to peruse and take a look. We're also on LinkedIn with the Daymar Group Consulting. You can take a look there and follow us. And anytime you follow us, you'll get notified of new partnerships we're making, new commitments we're doing, anything and everything that's in leadership development with AI and executive coaching, you name it, we're doing it.
Awesome. I love it. Well, we at Virtual Sapiens are very excited to be launching this new partnership. And I think, just given your strong focus on, again, the design and the integration and the implementation of programs, I think we'll see like some really awesome success with this for a much larger group of leaders, which is obviously what we're here for. So yeah, we're here for it, and I think it's a bright future. So Monique, thank you so much for joining. This was an amazing conversation, and thanks as always to our audience for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.